Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official podcast of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, The Buck, Kirk Buchner, owner, operator, and all-around drunken asshole who owns NotInHallOfFame.com, the fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame, and the other site, the fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Look for some information on that coming soon. Many of our regular listeners know that we've had Vinny Lospinuso from Hofstra University with us on an 8-part series looking at some people who probably got overlooked not probably, who really did get overlooked for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But there's been a lot of news about the Pro Football Hall of Fame lately. The preliminary nominees have been out. The Blue Ribbon Committee, who are going to be looking at the 2020 induction class, adding 15 more members, is now out. And there's a fan vote. And who better to bring back and discuss this than Vinny? Probably an individual you're going to see a lot on CBS, Fox, or NBC in the future. Whoever's got the NFL rights, Vinny should be broadcasting for him. Look for that in the future, but for now, here's Vinny. Vinny, have you ever seen Godfather Part 3?
No, I actually haven't seen the first 3 Godfathers. I didn't see the first 2 either.
Okay, well, that makes you a horrible Italian-American, but there's a line in Godfather 3 by Al Pacino who says, "Just when I thought I was out, they keep pulling me back in." And I'm pulling you back in, Vinny. You're back.
Yeah, indeed. But don't worry, I'm not going to play favorites here and, have Sofia Coppola come in as well. Don't worry, don't expect her to be mentioned. Don't expect me to have her on the show anytime soon.
How do you know who that is and her terrible performance, but you've never seen any of that? That's amazing.
Well, it's because I know about the history of Godfather Part 3, and I do want to see the Godfather movies because I know they are classic, and yes, I will see the third one because, it is a trilogy.
Don't. Just stop at 2. Just do 1 and 2, and then watch number 3 when, I don't know, it's got to be something when you've got, absolutely nothing else left to do. You've exhausted every video in NFL films, and you're half in the bag. And that's the only way that film, which isn't even a terrible film, but the first 2 are just so incredibly good. And Sofia Coppola was just so bad. Amazing. I can't believe she became such a great director.
Yeah, well, keep in mind, she's getting that after her father, but, the acting didn't come from her. It went with his nephew.
Oh, well, I wouldn't really call Nicolas Cage a great actor.
I didn't say great actor. I said the acting.
Okay, fair enough.
Acting into me.
Fair enough. So there's 3 things that I think we have to discuss, Pro Football Hall of Fame related. We're a little late on this one, but that actually works because of the news that sort of came out. So that way we can sort of talk about this in a large, encompassing stroke. The Pro Football Hall of Fame preliminary list is out.
122 guys.
Yeah, and there's a couple differences from last year. One is that there's no coaches section. That's going to be part of something we're going to talk about later in the Blue Ribbon Committee. So there's some interesting names who are in there who have zero chance of ever getting in, and some people who probably wouldn't have got in either, but deserve to at least gotten a preliminary nomination. I just want to look at some of these. First off, some names that sort of stick out in mind. We'll just go position by position, and we won't go. Yeah. We're not going to go in depth, because we'll talk more when they announce the semifinalists in, I believe, November or December, because that's usually when they do it.
Yeah.
So quarterbacks, only 2 people, I think. Go ahead.
There's 2 that a few of these have, and a couple have a good case, but I don't know why a few of these are even on this list to begin with.
Yeah, because I think there's going to be a time where I think we could do a whole show just discussing those 2 quarterbacks, and I think we're talking about the same 2, Cunningham and McNabb. I don't know how the hell. Go ahead. Yeah,
I just realized Steve McNair's not on this list.
No, he's not. Yeah, so McNair's not on this list, but Jake Delhomme is.
And Jeff Garcia's on this list as well.
Yeah.
Why? Seriously, you're going to choose You're going to choose Jeff Garcia, a career journeyman with only 4 Pro Bowls to his name, and you're not going to mention Steve McNair, a guy that was a longtime face of the Titans. He was an MVP. He led the league in passer rating once. He almost led the Titans to a Super Bowl championship.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently someone in the room said, I think Jeff Garcia deserves a little bit of mention for some reason. Why? Why?
Conspiracy theory, buddy. And you know I love these conspiracy theories because they're still pissed off at Terrell Owens, and they just wanted to they wanted to get some kind of reaction shot. Because you know the history between T.O. and Garcia.
Oh,
I got no other theory. I really don't.
Why is Jeff Hostetler's on this list too?
Yeah, I'll take Hostetler and Garcia over Jake Delhomme.
Also, Dave Creek's on this list as well.
I'm okay with that. He's a compiler. You know, he did a lot, and he was pretty good for a long time. I'm okay with Craig being a preliminary nominee. I have no problem with that. I'm okay. Same with Esiason.
I'm trying to set the Birdie's not a preliminary nominee.
Yeah, it's sort of weird. So so either way, none of these people, with the exception of maybe McNabb, could be a semifinalist, and that won't happen either.
The only two I could see with any chance of making Kenton are just Cunningham and McNabb, and that is it.
Right. Okay. So we can move on because other than just sort of taking shots at some of this, because it's weird. I mean, because these are people they're supposed to be the biggest experts for this sort of thing.
Well, I think they just do this just to pad it out, perhaps. But when you get to like that range, I mean, it gets really, really thin. But at the same time, you don't choose McNair, but instead you say Jeff Garcia, Jake Delhomme.
Jeff Hostetler probably doesn't even know he's a preliminary nominee.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he probably doesn't know. Running backs, we only have one returning finalist, in Edgerrin James.
I think he has a good chance. I think he has a really, really, really realistic chance of making it this year.
Yeah, he does. And so there's a few other names that are worth discussing, but that's not necessarily for today. Nothing that really sort of jumps out at you, other than maybe someone can make a case for Sean Alexander.
Mike Allstott is another
Mike
one.
Allstott, yeah. Priest Holmes is someone who...
That's a very interesting case. His case is very, very interesting. Ricky Waters, I was not able to mention him before, but Ricky Waters actually does have a legitimate case. The reason why I didn't mention him with the 49ers, Seahawks, or even the Eagles is because, time constraints. But, there is actually a fan push for Ricky Waters. And, Herschel Walker is also a guy that I've seen some push for him because he was a very, very important figure in NFL history, that well-known trade, and he was a really good player. But I just don't know.
I'd push for him because it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame. If you're going to acknowledge the AFL, the AAFC, the USFL produced a lot of great players.
Yeah, the Herschel Walker, I think, is a great way to just compile everything together. With professional football, you cannot mention the history of professional football without Herschel Walker.
I agree.
We're not here making a case for Herschel Walker. We're here just discussing the guys right here. And there are some good ones, but honestly, the only one I could see making it as a semifinalist or even make the Hall of Fame this year is Edgerrin James.
Yeah, agreed.
And if I were to say maybe one more, maybe Sean Alexander, but I don't know.
Now, what sticks out to me sort of next, we look at the wide receivers, and
boy, this is the most toxic section of them all.
So one of these men, there's 12, is a finalist, Isaac Bruce. But then
I can see McNair.
Yeah, so can I. But this logjam of people behind him: Donald Driver, Henry Ellard, Torrey Holt, who I'm a bigger champion of than Isaac Bruce, frankly. Ocho Cinco, Derek Mason, Muhsin Muhammad, Jimmy Smith, Rod Smith, Hines Ward, who's never been a finalist, and right now Reggie Wayne now enters the discussion.
The loaded list. Like I said, wide receiver is, when it comes to fans, this is easily the most toxic section of it because fans want to see wide receivers. And when a wide receiver is not getting in, people literally go crazy. That's why I really want to see Bruce make it this year as opposed to James, because James doesn't really have anyone that's really pushing him in. Whereas with Bruce has a big fan push, and he also has many other wide receivers behind him. So the reason why I would go with Bruce as opposed to James is because it just clears out some room for wide receivers. So it's a lot easier. That's nothing against James. It's just the fact that Isaac Bruce plays wide receiver, and there's a lot of wide receivers behind him.
I agree with you totally, Vinny, and then I hate myself for it at the same time because I've always been a proponent of just put the best people in it. But there's a certain reality. Wide receivers there's a big, giant glut of this, and there's going to be a lot more coming.
Oh, yeah. Like, the big reason as to why I say that I wanted the moderns to increase a little bit is because of positions like wide receiver. Wide receiver is that one position, and you not just here. You got to go like back here. Lavi Dilwick, Matt Beatty, Jim Benton, Ken Kavanaugh, Pete Retzlaff, Drew Pearson, Cliff Branch, Harold Carmichael, and so many of these great wide receivers. You keep going on, like Art Powell, so many of these, Lionel Taylor, so many of these wide receivers, and year by year, especially with social media, the calls for more wide receivers are going to get louder, more vicious, more hostile, more intense, more crazy, more rude. People feel like wide receiver definitely needs help, and everyone on the internet says the same thing.
And I agree with all of them. Tight ends, I don't even think it's worth discussing. None of these guys are getting in.
Actually, there is one guy. There is really just one guy that is worth discussing on here.
Ben Coates or Wesley Walls. Okay, yeah. I figured it had to be one of the two.
Ben Coates is the only guy because there's a push for him. Ben Coates was an all-decade team member. I was not able to mention with the Patriots because I mentioned so many Patriots at that time. Yeah. But, yeah, Ben Coates is on the all-decade team. He was essentially Gronk before Gronk. He was their franchise tight end. He even wore 87.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, he wore 87 for the Patriots. And, before, that was the big star that people wanted to go see, Ben Coates. I mean, I say, why not? I mean, he's on the all-decade team. Yeah. Makes sense. This was actually before the era of the tight end splitting. He was essentially I guess you can say somewhat innovative along with Tony Gonzalez. Obviously, Gonzalez contributed a lot more. But Ben Coates was also that guy that was there as well.
Yeah, and so we go to offensive linemen. There's 3 returners. Baselli, I still don't completely understand his push over some others, but okay, I'm okay with that. Faneca, who better get in this year, and Steve Hutchinson.
Yes, indeed. And there's a lot of great ones. You look at one guy that is going to fall off after this year, Chris Hinton. That guy, I think, great player. I feel like out of everyone who is on their final year of eligibility, him and one other guy I could see making it as a semifinalist. Steve Wisniewski, the best player that Raiders fans refuse to mention his name, is on here as well because
before you finish that, thank you, and I hate you for introducing me to this Raiders rabbit hole of Hall of Fame shit.
I have to. It's required.
Yeah. My God. If I see one more stupid argument about why Jim Plunkett is the biggest Hall of Fame snub, I don't have He
is not the biggest Hall of Fame snub. Whoever says that literally knows nothing about professional football.
Oh, my God.
Or if you're Raiders.
Yeah,
but there's a legitimate one, like Richmond Webb, who was on the all-decade team, not in yet. Lomas Brown, who we mentioned in the last part, that's the other guy that I'd like to see make it. Willie Anderson was a great right tackle for a long time. Chris Daniels was a guy that was cut short due to injury. Owen Cruz and Jeff Saturday were 2 dominant.
Yes, they were.
They were
absolutely
dominant. Cruz made the all-decade team. Jeff Saturday did not, though one could argue that Saturday might have been a little bit better. But these 2 were massive cornerstones and massive centerpieces to those offensive lines for the Bears and the Colts, respectively. Yeah, so I say, maybe, I think they're all deserving. But if you were to ask me who I think will make it as a semifinalist this year, well, I got to mention Baselli, Faneca, and Hutchinson because they've made it finalists already. I would maybe look at Hinton because this is his final year. I would keep an eye out for him.
They've thrown bones like this before.
Like Webb, I think could maybe see, and I know that And as for centers, I think you probably Cruz, but I don't know. But if I were to say, like, maybe just guess for one more guy, Wisniewski, because it just makes sense to me. I mean, he's an 8-time All-Pro, 8-time Pro Bowler. Again, please, Raiders fans, wake up.
They won't. They won't.
I know they won't. Well, that's the sad part about it, and I feel bad for the guy.
And let's do a 2-minute tangent here, the 2-minute warning tangent. So just my open thought here about Plunkett. I get your point. 2 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. The MVP on individual games generally always goes to a quarterback. Plunkett was good, but in the second year that they won that, I think in the year that they did, they were trying to replace their quarterback during the season. He's a 500 record. I know you're going to point at Joe Namath, blah, blah, blah. I get it.
The thing with Joe Namath, it's a terrible argument. Because have you ever seen Joe Namath's accolades and his awards?
Yes, I have.
Yes, and people keep smearing his name just so much. And I'm like saying, man, can you guys just go and Google Joe Namath's awards and see for yourself that he was not this horrible quarterback that you keep pretending that he is?
And it was a different era. Like, and Plunkett was a good quarterback who was the beneficiary, who basically was good enough. He was Trent Dilfer twice. Like, maybe that's not. No, what's a better one? Brad Anderson. Brad Johnson. Who's the Bucs quarterback? I'm blanking.
I think Dilfer was also number 1 pick as well.
I'm blanking now. Who was the Tampa Bay quarterback who won in 2001?
Brad Johnson.
Brad Johnson. Why did I say Brad Anderson? What the hell am I thinking?
But, you're seeing some people say, oh, Plunkett was better than Eli. Because now, the fact that Eli is now on the bench.
But
obviously, Eli was far better. I don't get where this argument is even coming from.
But I can say one thing though, Vinny, that I do think should be mentioned in their defense. It is called the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of Great Stats. So in terms of those moments, I get that case, but it's a very high bar, and he doesn't make Namath his bar.
Oh yeah, like even when it comes to Eli, because he just retired, maybe I can go into a little bit more depth about this. So, as for what I think of Eli, he's not going to make it first ballot. I do think he will make the Hall of Fame after maybe 10 years. I think it's going to be incredibly just divisive and hostile from both sides of the aisle. But I think the positive out of it is that
Eli didn't retire yet.
No, I didn't, but they're mentioning his Hall of Fame case already.
Yeah.
But I think that once Eli gets in, the good thing maybe the silver line you can take out of this, if you're against Eli, is that it would increase the demand for Cunningham, McNabb, maybe even Romo, maybe even a guy like Jack Kemp who has won 2 championships. And it would, if there's anyone that I think would increase the most for, would most likely be Plunkett. But I would say that McNabb and Cunningham definitely would increase. And I did send you a link. I was having this one discussion with Cunningham's career was a fool. It fooled everyone. I said, what are you talking about? The guy won 3 Burfell Awards.
I know, right? Nobody talks about that.
I do.
Yeah, well, that's why you're here. So let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Linebackers, no returners, but Patrick Willis, is he a semifinalist? I think so.
Before that, I do need to mention, we mentioned offensive linemen. No one mentioned Reuben Brown. Why?
I don't know.
Why? No one's mentioning Reuben Brown. 9-time Pro Bowls and 4 All-Pros. I know we're mentioning defense, but I had to mention Reuben Brown because I think Reuben Brown is the biggest glaring omission from this easily.
Why do you think they just saw Lomas Brown and figured they did it?
I don't know, no, Reuben Brown, not Lomas Brown, Reuben Brown.
No, I know, but I mean, Lomas Brown's a preliminary nominee. So they just figured just somebody did another quick fact check, okay, Brown. Okay, yeah, well, we got Reuben.
Maybe because I'm not Brian Waters, but I don't know. You look at Reuben Brown; he has more All-Pros, more Pro Bowls, more games started.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
No, I don't either. Oh, so like linebacker, I skipped defensive lineman. I'll go back to that. But yeah, linebackers, no returners. There's like two names that stick out to me that like who probably I'm surprised he's never been a finalist. Zach Thomas. So that
Zach Thomas, I think, will be a finalist this year. I think Zach Thomas will definitely be a finalist this year.
Patrick Willis.
Patrick Willis, I could see as a semi-finalist.
Right. Yeah,
I do not
I see
see him
the
as
same.
a finalist.
I see the same.
But surprisingly, there's a guy that has been a semifinalist that has actually been talked about far more than Zach Thomas, surprisingly, and that's Clay Matthews Jr.
Oh, we're gonna get to him. We got some things to talk about him.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about him. Probably when we get to like the that list of like top 5 because like his push is massive. His push is so massive. But when we get to like the little voting thing, we'll get to him. But
yes,
yeah, like there's some good names on here like Carl Banks. My dad likes him, but I don't know. Cornelius Bennett, the reverse Charles Haley himself. Wilbur Marshall, who, like Chris Hinton, I could see as maybe a wild card semifinalist because it's their final year of eligibility, and two very underrated players in their time. You see a lot of Patriots fans mention these two guys, Bruschi and McGinnis. Like they mention their names a lot, but you really think they're more deserving than some of these other guys on here?
Not at all, and not even close.
No, they're just wanted because there's a lot of Patriots fans, and it's like essentially the Raiders fans with Phil Villapiano. It's the same exact sort of thing. He's a well-known player from the team, and they like him. That's what it comes down to. Lennon Fletcher is kind of similar to Matthews, and with very, very massive longevity and very big Ironman. I could see a good case for him down the line. And Sam Mills, he was a semifinalist last year.
Yeah, the only difference, well, not the only difference, but I mean, the biggest thing between Fletcher and Matthews is the fan base. Matthews with everything in Cleveland and Fletcher spreading that out.
Yeah, and also the final guy on here is Jesse Tuggle, who retired with the most amount of tackles of all time. I'm shocked because if only Falcons fans weren't just so passive about everything, maybe you could actually see a bit of a fan push for him.
You could. So defensive lineman, we got one returning, Richard Seymour. Richard Seymour, yeah. Who will probably be a finalist again, because generally if you're a finalist once, you don't fall off of that threshold.
Adrian James actually did that once.
Yeah, but generally you don't.
Roger Craig, even though he was in semifinalist purgatory, there was one year where he made a finalist and did not advance any further after that for some crazy reason. But if you're looking at these defensive linemen, there's one guy that's new that I should mention, John Abraham.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Very dominant player. I was not going to mention his name with the Jets or with the Falcons because of time restraints. But Abraham was a really, really dominant player for a long time with the Jets and the Falcons. He finished a total of 133 and a half quarterback sacks, which is a really impressive number. And that makes him 13th all time. Everyone else above him is either not yet to be eligible or, everyone else, they're either yet to be eligible or in the case of Terrell Suggs, still active, which is a very, very incredible number for John Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see him making it as a semifinalist for at least a few years.
So then we go to defensive backs. We've got two returners.
Not yet. Simeon Wright and Leslie O'Neal were also semifinalists. Neil Smith deserves some recognition.
I like
Neil. Justin Smith. Don't forget Justin Smith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love them all. Love them all.
Justin Smith was the guy that I think he could be a dark horse. I really think he could be a dark horse Hall of Fame discussion because he was essentially the cornerstone, the captain of that 49ers defense. Yes, Willis was a better player, but Justin Smith was essentially the cornerstone. He was the guy that anchored that defense, and the defense suffered when he was injured, immensely. They were far worse without him.
Yeah, and actually, just so I'm looking here at the defensive backs, and for those listening, and you're probably, I don't know if you're doing the same thing, Vinny. I'm reading this directly off the Pro Football Hall of Fame site.
I'm doing the same thing.
Okay, so, and just sort of like one thing that sort of sticks out in my head when I'm looking at defensive backs. Two returners for finalists, Steve Atwater, I'm pulling for him so hard to get in. John Lynch also returning. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's got the longest streak of finalist appearance.
He's been a finalist for so long. In fact, I'm looking at my spreadsheet right now in terms of finalists because I have a whole list of like who's been a finalist. John Lynch has been a finalist for 6 straight years.
Mm-hmm.
6 straight years. Can you imagine someone like John Lynch who comes in and says, my 7th year of eligibility, oh, what a shock, I'm a finalist again, and I still don't make it. And unfortunately for him, I think that's still going to be the case, but on the flip side, I would take Atwater over him.
I would too. But right now, you know who if Lynch gets in, the first text he's going to get is from Rondé.
Yes, Rondé Barber, who has been a semifinalist the last few years, and Leroy Butler, who I'll mention him a little bit later in the fan vote. He actually ranked pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
Troy Vincent, who actually has a somewhat decent case, especially considering that he's been very high, like the NFL ranks in terms of the company itself. You know, Darren Woodson has also been a semifinalist. I would not leave him out. Like I said, he was literally a do-everything sort of player. And there's also one other name. There's 2 names that have not been on this list there's 2 names on this list that I could see making it in the semifinals, and one of them I see making it first out. That guy is Troy Polamalu. Yep. I think he's a slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famer, arguably the best safety of his era. But also Rodney Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
Rodney Harrison is that guy where I already saw him planting the seeds like the last few weeks and months, basically taking shots at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, saying that they hated his style of play, that they're punishing Patriots players, all that other stuff. They ignore my sacks. They ignore my systems. They don't respect us. The fans know us more. Respect us more. I think he's laying the groundwork. I can already tell that he's laying the groundwork for Patriots fans to be in the Raiders fan level.
Because that's all we're missing. That's all we need is more of that. The reason I was asking you, though, Vinny, if you were on the Football Hall of Fame site, so you mentioned how they didn't nominate Brown. So one thing also here they underline all the ones who are first ballot Hall of Famers. Notice how Polamalu doesn't have one.
The only guy they underline for first year eligibility is Maurice Jones-Drew.
Right. So I'm just saying their attention for detail, not so good.
Yeah. You might need a few people to yell at your face that Reuben Brown and Steve McNair, should be on here instead of guys like Jeff Garcia.
I'll maintain my theory. That was to piss off T.O. I really think so. Because
maybe it did. And now we get into the part that I like.
Okay, but don't tell me and this is also, I think, a record for the amount of preliminary punters and kickers. There's not one of these guys who has a flying chance in hell of being a semifinalist. Not one of them.
No, I do not see a single one of these kickers or punters. Now, granted, some of these I love. I think Landetta, and Eagles have really, really good quality cases for punters making, because Landetta's been an all-decade team many years. Beagles has many records in terms of punting, but I love Beagles. He's not making the semifinals. And there are some kickers on here, like Jason Hansen, which the only case for him tends to be the fact that he played with one team, the Lions, his entire career. Which that really comes down to it, and the fact he's 4th all time. Anderson, who I think his character was kind of smeared, I kind of want to see him happy, but I think the best one of all these guys is David Akers.
And he doesn't have a shot. He doesn't.
This year, no. I think David Akers, I think he has a really, really great case in terms of a kicker. Because, he was a 6-time Pro Bowler, 6-time All-Pro, won the Golden Toe Award, all-time leading scorer for the Eagles, longest field goal in team history for the 49ers, made the 75th anniversary team for the Eagles, made the all-decade team, has many, many records in terms of points scored and field goals by a kicker. That alone, I think, is why David Akers stands head and shoulders above everyone else in the punters and kickers section.
Yeah, but it won't matter.
But even that, but I'm going to be real here. It's going to take him at least 10 years to probably make it as a semifinalist alone.
If he gets that. Special teamers, though, there's a couple names that intrigue me.
Oh, it's more fun with this one.
Yeah, a former semifinalist in Steve Tasker. Brian Mitchell, I'd like to see get some attention.
Oh, the best Redskin not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But the fact that they've certainly, obviously, or maybe not obviously, the coach's removal from this might be the special teamers' gain. I don't know.
Yeah, I should mention this. Because there is a section with 16 total special teamers, I think it's possible to see one or maybe even two as semifinalists.
Possible. I wouldn't bet on it, though.
I wouldn't bet on two, but I would definitely bet on one. And if I was to choose one, it would be Tasker. And if I was to choose one more, it would be Mitchell.
Who would you rather, Mitchell or Tasker?
Probably Tasker because he's in the semifinals multiple years. However, I think once Tasker gets in, it'd probably be a time in which you see Devin Hester on that list. And I think Mitchell and Hester are just going to battle it out with the fans.
Right.
There's also one other guy I should mention here, Mel Gray, 7-time All-Pro.
Yeah,
I mean,
great player.
He's not. Let's be real. He's probably not going to make it for a long time, if ever. But if you make it in the '90s All-Decade team, and if you're considered one of the greatest return men ever, and if you were an All-Pro 7 times at it, some recognition, but that also tells you how good Tasker and Mitchell were at their position, in which I'm not even mentioning Mel Gray in the same sentence as them.
Right. Yeah, no, I wouldn't have a problem. I don't want Mel Gray to pass Mitchell, but I wouldn't be pissed off if that happened either. If that makes any sense.
I know the fan base would be pissed off because, really? Mitchell's second all-time in all-purpose yards, and Mel Gray did it. Not saying that Mel Gray's not deserving, but I think they'll just see, many fans will see, the total yards and how Mitchell was, head and shoulders above everyone else. That's what's going to really help him out.
So, I think sort of a quick synopsis of this. First off, kudos to the Pro Football Hall of Fame for even doing a preliminary list and sort of generating that buzz and conversation. It's fantastic. I think some of the other Halls of Fame could certainly learn from that. I think there's still some kinks to sort of work out because there's some great people. Oh, Asante Samuel was another one left off.
Asante Samuel. That's the guy who he wants to be in the Hall of Fame. Asante Samuel's not on here. Reuben Brown's not on here, and Steve McNair's not on here. Those are the three big guys that I can take away from this and say, why are they not on this? And instead, you have guys like Ryan Longwell, who never had a Pro Bowl at kicker. Johnny Bailey, who has one Pro Bowl to his name, or maybe just one All-Pro. And you have Jake Delhomme and Jeff Garcia.
Totally.
I'm a guy that likes special teamers, but let's be real. Longwell has no chance. And hell, seriously, if you don't even have a Pro Bowl to your name as a kicker, come on, man.
But he does have the best name for a kicker.
Ryan Longwell, yes, but you don't get in by having a good last name now, do you?
Well, apparently, based on some of the decision-making here, maybe you do. I don't know. It's just a few little curious things that a lot of people aren't really noticing or calling out on, but that's what we do.
I'm calling out on those three, especially
me too. No, like that, and just that was my. But yeah, just when I looked at that quarterback list, you don't necessarily have to put people there if you don't think they were worthy. Jake Delhomme will probably tell you he's not a Hall of Famer. You know who did say he wasn't a Hall of Famer? Matt Burke said he isn't.
Yeah, Matt Burke, I'm shocked that Matt Burke even said that. And Matt Burke, many people think he has a legitimate case, but I would say not before Cruising Saturday.
Sure, but Matt Burke's not. He's thinking that he's not. He definitely deserves to be in some kind of discussion over some of these other guys, but what are you going to do?
Matt Burke also. He says a few things off of the field as well.
Well, yeah, there's. We could go into how politics have kept some people out of Halls of Fame. Kurt Schilling, I'm looking at you, but that's.
But didn't stop Mariano Rivera though.
No, it did not.
But I would say with Matt Burke, luckily with the NFL, luckily doesn't have that same weird way of doing it, just dumbass way of doing it like baseball. But I would say but I would say that Matt Burke himself, that could be the only thing. But even then, there's better centers that are reserved. I think Matt Burke definitely deserves to be on the preliminary list, though.
Oh, totally.
But I just don't understand why he says I'm not a Hall of Famer. You're lying to yourself, or is Jesus telling you to say that?
Or he's humble, or objective. But going back to your Rivera Schilling thing, Rivera never criticized media. Schilling did.
Yeah, and again, while I think a lot of that reason is a big reason as to why baseball has gotten lower viewership, because you've seen a lot of these people have gotten they're kind of tired of the old way of doing it, and it's a big reason as to why the majority of people that watch a lot of baseball their target demographic for the most people that watch it are 60-year-old white men. I mean, that's not going to fly in today.
It makes it a harder sell, that's for sure. So
much harder.
So finally, the thing that we've been talking about has come to fruition. There's the Blue Ribbon Committee.
Oh, hell yeah. Blue Ribbon Committee. This is what I've been wanting.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I'm looking at this, I feel so optimistic for the chances of these guys later. Even if they don't make it, I'm very optimistic for their chances down the road, and I'm very optimistic that it could lead to potentially slightly larger classes down the road.
Yeah. But for those who aren't aware, so what this is, in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the National Football League, they're doing a 20-person class. 5 people will be inducted on traditional methods. Then it'll be 15 others, 10 senior candidates. Was it 3 coaches, 2 contributors? Yeah. Oh, sorry, 3 contributors, 2 coaches. I got it backwards.
10 seniors, which is a player that's been out of the game for at least 35 years, something like that. Mm-hmm. Then it's, I say 35 because there's a 5-year waiting period after you're a modern guy. You have to wait 5 more years, and then you can get considered a semi. And then there's contributors, who is a guy that never played the game but contributed a lot. If you're an executive, or an owner, or if you're a guy that had an impact on the NFL stuff, or just pro football stuff. And if you're a coach, well, you're a coach.
Right. So nothing really changed. So in terms of contributors, we obviously with 3, we're going to see more this year. Coaches, usually it's 1, if any. Now we're going to have at least 2. Yeah. That could help or hurt some people, depending on how back. Because now they're looking all the way back. So there could be some left field candidates that could hurt someone like a Tom Flores, for example.
Yeah, Raiders. Listen, I understand Raiders fans. Listen, Tom Flores is a very deserving guy. He is. But let me tell you right now, the problem with Flores, I'm on board with Flores. But I feel like what could hurt the race thing with Flores is kind of similar with Gabriel in a sense, in which, not saying Latino and Asians don't deserve representation, but it doesn't even come close to how much the African American community has impacted the game. Mm-hmm. That's probably why I think my feel is. But you're gonna get those people that say the NFL hates Mexicans.
Yeah, which is why they push NFL in Mexico so hard. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, but it doesn't make any sense because they say some fans have actually said that, but yet the same year that Flores didn't make it when he was a finalist was the same year that Gonzalez made his first ballot. Mm-hmm. You gotta love Raiders fans, man. You gotta love Raiders fans.
So with the 10 seniors, they did mention before, and I apologize, Vinny, you might know who mentioned this, but I can't recall who exactly that was discussing how there's certain members of all decade teams who got looked over. So hopefully some of the guys you've been pushing really hard for, Duke Slater, I know is your biggest go-to, and I think
Duke Slater was actually not a part of the all-decade team for some reason.
Oh, he wasn't? Okay.
He was not.
Corrected. Okay.
No, he wasn't. But I do think that there will be some exceptions, but I think in terms of exceptions, he's definitely one of them. But in terms of the biggest all-decade team member that's not in, it's easily Lavi Dilwig. No question in my mind.
Right. And maybe that's going to be the induction that'll sort of get Packers fans to shut up based on what they've sort of pushed on the website, but we'll get there. One thing that I want your take on, or 2 things actually, regarding this committee here. So it's 25 names. Most of the attention is going to Bill Belichick. For me, that's I don't even see Belichick attending much of a meeting. I don't think he has the time. Where I'm noticing here is that most of these people are actually existing Hall of Fame selectors.
of them are, and then some of them are like actual Hall of Famers. Like, if I recall, I need to just pull it up again. Like, well, first off, with Belichick, obviously he's going to get the attention because, he's still active. He is, the coach, arguably the greatest head coach of all time. I mean, he probably knows, I'm going to make the Hall of Fame. Just watch. But, yeah, I did expect a few voters because usually some of the voters, like the ones that are on there, Rick Gosselin knows a lot about football history.
Mm-hmm.
John Clayton, the professor.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Knows a lot about the game. And, I have massive respect for both of them. Gosselin really knows this stuff. And as for Clayton, I remember watching him on ESPN for many years. But there are a few other guys on here as well, like, Joe Horgan, who was an executive at the Hall of Fame itself. And he's a genius. I definitely tell you right now, Horgan's going to push like crazy for Duke Slater.
Yeah, and again, I don't have a problem with any of the people that they've chosen, except for maybe Belichick. And again, it's not because of who he is. It's just he is an active participant. I think he's got other things on his plate. How engaged in this discussion can he really be?
I think he might know some things. Like, he would tell you that some players, like, let's say, I think he'd be one that could push a guy like, I don't know how much Patriots history he knows, but if he does, I think he'd want Gino Cappelletti, but I don't see him making it this year. Maybe he can mention some guys that he coached, specifically when he was with the Lions for that 1 year. If that does play in a role, he's going to mention Karras. He's going to mention Karras.
I think as one of the great the people on Twitter who I talk to a lot and who does some shows with me, also Evan Nolan, who follow him as Secondhand Burrito, just a great guy. He sort of thought, well, this could open the door for Robert Kraft. Because they're voting on contributors.
I don't see Robert Kraft making this year.
I don't either. But if he does, what correlation they're going to come up with.
Oh, they are. They're going to see. Like, I remember in 2018 when Bobby Beathard, really deserving guy, he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. Where Broncos fans were bitter that it wasn't Pat Bowlen, and who did they turn to? Well, they looked at the guys that were in the room. Even though they didn't vote, they looked at the guys that were in that room. And the two guys that were in that room, it's John Madden, who's also voting, and Charlie Casserly, who both knew Bobby Beathard very, very, very well. And with me, I felt very bad for Beathard because it made some dumb people on the internet and just some dumb fans in general literally say that he didn't deserve to be in because it was done out of politics, which, again, I feel incredibly bad for the fact that he has to be associated like that because there's no reason as to why anyone should actually dismiss Bobby Beathard's case. Because Bobby Beathard was arguably better than Polian and Wolf.
But again, it can happen. This does happen.
And by the way, Polian and Wolf are also voting in this as well.
So yeah, the only problem voter I have is Belichick. Again, not because of his credentials, just because he's not in a position to dedicate the time needed for this. He's not, and that's my only issue. So Patriots fans, don't jump on me. He's just got other things to do, like maybe win you another Super Bowl. How about that?
They're gonna see it as like, obviously Patriots fans are going to say it, but everyone outside of Patriots fans is going to say they're biased in favor of the Patriots, which is weird because the Patriots fans are saying the league against them, but yet with everyone else, it's the other way around. But it just doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It really does.
I'm one Saints fan that can feel that the league's against them, especially if we play the Rams. But that's another story, and I'm not going to go there.
And finally, I do want to mention when it comes to this, maybe they would not have Kraft because a few things. One, there could be a few owners that are discussed. My boy Carol Rosenblum is one of them. Mm-hmm. I think Clint Murchison is one that's going to be discussed. Art Modell, who carries Browns fans. Bud Adams, who helped create the AFL, I think will definitely be mentioned. And maybe even Ol Harsgaard, who was a guy that was a finalist way, way back in the 1970s, who did not make it. And he is partially a big reason to why the NFL is still afloat today.
Now, one thing that I read that sort of threw me off, and I had to read it 3 times to make sure I was reading it correctly. in theory, they could vote for all of these people, and they have to go through an 80% approval. They're not doing it individually. Right. So I don't see this happening, but in theory, they could vote none of them in because it's all or nothing.
Yeah, that's just weird to me because I feel like if that does in fact happen, you are going to get a PR disasters on a level that we have never seen.
Sure, and they should.
I understand that you could say, like, yes, I think Ken would deserve a little bit of flack, but at the same time, can you understand how petty you'd have to be? In which I'm not going to allow this entire class of 15 people because I don't like that one guy. I don't like that one guy. I don't think he's deserving because I know more.
But it could happen. I mean, I don't see it happening.
I'm saying that if Paul Tagliabue was one of those, this could be a chance, but
yeah, but you need 20% of that. 20% of that room would have to disagree.
Yeah, and I don't see that happening because I think even the people that are crazy against Tagliabue, I think some of them would have to take a step back and say, I may think that Tagliabue is from what I'm hearing, like a couple of them literally are stuck in their own way. But I think even a couple of them would have to say it's not worth literally sabotaging this entire class over Tagliabue.
Yeah, and again, I don't see it happening, but I mean, I think, like, why even put that in there?
It's weird. It is weird. But also, I would say that essentially this class could go the anti-Harold Baines route. And, it's about time that I tell you my thoughts on the whole Harold Baines thing, because I felt like this has been building up for a while. In case anyone doesn't know, Harold Baines was a baseball player that played for the Chicago White Sox and many, many other teams during his time and had like almost 2,900 hits.
Yeah, something like that.
Very big. But his induction, because he didn't even make it after a few years in the bout, but he made it because in that room you had his owner, his manager, and his teammates.
Yep.
And it looked so bad because you had guys like Lou Piniella, Will Clark, and several other guys that did not make it, and that's because of the connection with Harold Baines. And I felt bad for Harold because it felt like they were literally just ripping him apart because of it, and I felt bad for him. But I also don't want to blame him. I blame everyone else involved because it made it look so bad. And how I mentioned people not wanting to pay attention to baseball as much as they used to. This I think is Exhibit A of why. Sure. I really think that is when they're going to say no to Pinella, no to Bell, no to Carter, no to Steinbrenner, no to Johnson, no to Hershire, no to Clark, but yes to Baines because I played with him.
Well, I'm one big Jays fan who would have said no to Joe Carter too. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, yeah, but some people have mentioned Joe Carter, but everyone was against Harold Baines. Literally, the whole world was against Harold Baines. Now, I'm not saying any of them are delivering or not, but I'm just saying the reason why those guys didn't make it in is because they played with Harold Baines. Right. That's essentially the reason.
And I don't. Yeah, and I hear you, Vinny, because I don't begrudge Baines because I don't think. And again, I don't know the man. I'm going by the limited interviews that I recall from him. He always seemed like a really good, humble guy, which again sort of helped his case. But Baines, not technically, even though it's the same class, Baines actually got chosen for the Hall of Fame before Edgar Martinez.
Yeah, he did. He became the first DH to make it.
Right, and well, he's not the first DH to make it, but
pure DH.
Yeah, because I consider Frank Thomas a DH and Paul Molitor. But yeah.
But yeah, do you feel bad for the guy?
I feel bad because I don't think he's the type of person. And again, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know. But I don't see him as the one who called up Jerry Reinsdorf and says, I think I'd be really good for that hall. I mean, I've kept my beard really nice. I had the best beard in 80s baseball. He didn't, but it was always pretty cool. I always thought Harold Baines missed his calling sort of as an 80s pop star. Or R&B, smooth R&B stuff, because he had that look to it. And I loved Harold Baines as a player. He was actually one of my... I always loved those focused hitters with the sweet swing, which he had.
Baines was a great hitter. He really was a great hitter. I know that people ripped him apart, but I know this is a controversial opinion. I have no problem with Harold Baines being in the Cooperstown. What I do have an issue with is how he was elected.
Sure. And we should, because but then it always goes back to people. It's a people's opinion. And so, like, one thing before we go to our third and final topic, the thing that sort of actually is a perfect thing about people's opinion. Who was that writer? I think you tweeted this out to me or sent this either in a private message. I can't recall. Like on the Pro Football Hall of Fame, who said, if I had known that Terrell Owens would have done what he did, I wouldn't have voted for him because he didn't show up to the ceremony.
Gary Myers was also voting, and it's like Gary Myers is one of those, like when you think of like those old, crusty New York sports writer, Gary Myers is like the epitome of that stereotype. And so nothing against Gary Myers, but usually those stereotypes, they're usually linked to him the most.
Okay, so publicly, I'll just say to Gary Myers, go fuck yourself. He's either a Hall of Famer or he's not. Him not showing up has nothing to do with any of that.
I think, calls for him to be, his vote to be revoked literally skyrocketed and obviously went down. But yeah, like, I say that of all the voters that I would say is like that, he's really like one of the, like, back then the Football Hall of Fame had a terrible voting process. But one of the few remnants that tend to remain in terms of that weird, old-fashioned and outdated and just blatantly dumb voting process was Gary Myers. That's nothing against Gary Myers, because I think Gary Myers deserves. I mean, Gary Myers has been for a long time, but he gives that vibe. Nothing against him. That vibe that he gives is that stereotype of baseball, right? It's a very similar stereotype. And fortunately, he's only one guy out of 50. 48, whatever. So it won't impact that much. But he's also voting on this entire class as well.
Right. And I just sort of hate that sort of argument. I mean, we all know that T.O. has sort of been a diva. So, like, what? So, but he's one of those guys, and I get why people made him wait for the character argument. I don't like it, but I can be persuaded in a room with 47 other people why they might want to punish him. I still didn't like it. Because stat-wise, he was still there, and on the biggest stage in the Super Bowl, he performed.
Oh, what are you talking about character? Antonio Brown?
Shot. Done. He just... Oh, my God. I had him, so like when I did that thing, and thank you again publicly for helping me with that, and sort of giving your input on that top 100 active players. What did I have him at? Number 14.
Yeah, number 14. I'm shocked that Darren Sproles was on the list.
You know what? That's my Reuben Brown moment, and I'll admit that now. Because I honestly thought he had retired.
Yeah, it's fine. So you're saying with Antonio Brown?
No, I was saying with Antonio Brown. I mean, it's like because he hasn't done the T.O. numbers yet, and now it's even more toxic. And T.O. never was accused of sexual assault.
He didn't do it, not even, let alone twice. And he also didn't throw off his hotel room.
And he also, he's done so much more worse shit than T.O. ever did. And it's at the point where, I mean, like, why would any team bother with him now? If the Patriots and Bill Belichick said, well, not so much Belichick, I mean the other stuff that went on, said, nah, we're done. And, and Antonio Brown's he's gonna get that $9 million bonus too. It looks like legally he's entitled.
Yeah, I think if stuff doesn't go well for him, because I really don't know, but if the stuff with sexual assault actually turns out that he didn't do it, and if he did in fact do a sexual assault, I think he'll be Darren Sharper 2.0.
Well, I don't think it's to that point, and it's still right now. And
no, I said if he in fact did sexual assault, if he in fact did break it would be like that.
And you're right, Vinny. Let's be objective here. Right now, as we're recording this, everything's still innocent until proven guilty, and there's there's a lot of.
I do not know if he did it. Signs point to. I don't know. She might have been lying, but it's also Antonio Brown, who is not exactly right in the head right now.
Well, that's the other thing. So, like, forget that other thing. So it's just. Why would any team want this headache?
Yeah, and the reason I mentioned Brown is because Brown, I feel like if he in fact never plays again, I think his case could be similar to Calvin Johnson. However, I don't think his case is as good as Calvin Johnson's. But I do think it only seems fitting for a wide receiver, the fact that Antonio Brown's a wide receiver of everyone, and he just happens to be in the same position as the one position in all football in which, when it comes to offensive discussion, it's usually the most toxic.
Yeah.
So it only fits.
Yeah. So let's finish this up with toxic discussion. So the Pro Football Hall of Fame allows people to vote for pretty much everyone who's on that preliminary list that we talked about. I don't think, and I think you probably agree with me, that they don't give a rat's ass what people are voting for.
The voting means jack shit.
Right.
The voting does not mean anything. The voting literally means nothing. All it shows is it basically shows what teams have a lot of fans, or sometimes what players have the biggest push. That's all it really shows.
And that's not even why they did it, Vinny. As one website owner, I can sort of say, they're doing that to generate hits, and that way they can charge more for ads.
Exactly.
More power to them. More power to them. But I don't have that in front of me. I know you sent that off to me, and I apologize. I don't remember the 5, but there was 5 people who were the top listed vote getters, and they all come from a certain part of the country, don't they?
Yeah. In fact, I have the list right in front of me right now.
Read them off, please.
Okay. Let me tell you right now. One fan base came in and stormed this website. Are you ready for this? Because this is
Green Bay, right?
This is easily this. Let's be real. This is not my top 5. I would not have these as my top 5 at all.
Right.
Except for one of them. And maybe 2, but definitely at least one of them. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Nick Collins, who played 6 seasons for the Packers and had 3 All-Pros, is number 5. Nick Collins.
Yeah. He's number 5 out of that 122 people list. So he's ahead of past finalists.
According to this vote, this vote would tell you that apparently Nick Collins, who, let's be real, he has no chance of making it. Let's just call it how it is, really. Nick Collins, essentially telling that Nick Collins is more deserving than Atwater, Seymour, Bruce, Baselli, Faneca, Hutchinson, Thomas, and so many of these other guys. They're essentially saying that he's more deserving than all these, which just tells you this is BS. This is BS right there. The fact that Nick Collins is number 5. What do you make of Nick Collins number 5?
We didn't even talk about him before. I think that says it all.
Yeah, we didn't mention his name.
And it's no disrespect to Nick Collins, a good player, but Nick Collins knows full well that he's not a Hall of Famer, and that he's if someone probably tweeted him, "Hey, you're number 5," like, "Hey, gee, thanks." What's he gonna say?
Yeah, like Nick Collins. On the good side, very early on, he was like fighting for fifth with Hines Ward, who obviously is a much deserving player. But the reason why Hines Ward is probably even up there in the first place is because he plays for the Steelers.
Yeah.
Not saying Ward is far more deserving than Collins.
Oh, I know. I know that's what you're saying for sure.
But let's just call it as I see it. The reason as to why Collins is that high is because he wears the green and gold. Well, it's kind of but whatever. He plays for the Packers. That's why he's that high.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to number 4. Now, this guy easily out of all the players, I didn't mention him. I mentioned him just briefly, but the reason why I wanted to mention him here was because this very fits very well for him. Out of all the modern era candidates, he easily has the largest push by fans. Clay Matthews Jr.
Yep.
What 19 years, more than any other linebacker. Finished his career most amount of tackles ever. He made the Ring of Honor on Sunday, where essentially they mentioned several times that he's matched up with all these great Hall of Fame players. And he deserves, basically they mentioned several times that he deserves in the Hall of Fame. We'll see you in Canton. We'll hope you make it to Canton. That whole thing was like, that whole entire thing with the Ring of Honor, it was essentially a push for him to get into Canton because...
It was a paid commercial.
It was one big commercial. Push Clay Matthews Jr. for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. do it right now. Do it right now. And like, it easily is the biggest push, not even close, out of guys that are in the modern era that have been semifinals or finals, easily. Not including Steve Atwater and Isaac Bruce in this. Clay Matthews has easily the largest push by fans.
That generation's Jim Marshall.
Yeah, and what's great, like, it's similar to Jim Marshall, but Clay Matthews. Clay Matthews is on his 19th year of modern eligibility, so if he doesn't make it in 2021, he's in the senior pool. So we clearly tell that the push for Clay Matthews is extremely strong. Like it literally is near Tom Flores levels of how much they want this guy. Like, we know how Raiders fans really, and 50,000 other really's want Tom Flores. Browns fans feel the same exact way about Clay Matthews Jr.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that push so much. I just wish there was some objectivity involved, but that's asking a lot from some people.
But now some people think that Clay Matthews is going to make it this year. I think the most I could see him making it is as a top 15 finalist, and even then, is anyone going to push for him above Zach Thomas?
He's got to leapfrog some big talents, and that's generally not what happens in this process.
Clay Matthews, the only other two linebackers I can see him having to chase is like Zach Thomas and maybe Sam Mills, but I think because of the push alone, Matthews probably has leapfrog Mills. I can see Matthews as a finalist, but when he does not make it to the Hall, when he does not make it this year, oh boy. It's going to be...
Well, especially if Cleveland keeps shit in the bed. They're not exactly doing what we thought they were going to do, did they?
Oh, no. Like, they have been very disappointing. Like, especially if Clay Matthews Jr. does not make it as a finalist this year, can you imagine how Browns fans are going to react?
Ugh. No, I don't want... No. Let's move on. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Who's number 3?
Now, finally, number 3, get a guy that actually will make it this year. Troy Polamalu.
Yep.
Easily first ballot Hall of Famer, best safety of his era. Now, granted, one could say the reason why he's that high is because the Steelers, fair enough. But I think another reason why he's this high as well is because everyone thinks he's first ballot. Everyone thinks he's first ballot. And also,
regardless of fan base.
He will have a first ballot bust as well.
Yeah.
Like, the hair. The hair, man.
Oh my God! I didn't even think about that. How much bronze is that gonna be?
I don't know. Remember Ed Reed's bust? That was amazing.
Ed Reed is the man.
And Ed Reed and Troy Polamalu. People argue who was the better safety.
Reed.
And some people could say the same thing about their Hall of Fame bust as well.
Oh,
Could
that will be awesome.
Polamalu or Reed, which I hope happens because. Man, Polamalu, he was in a Coke Zero commercial one year. Like, they made a parody of, like, the old Hey Kid Catch one where instead they give a kid Coke Zero and then he knocks out some workers and he rips the shirt off of one guy and destroys the kid.
I would love it. All right, so...
And, of course, when you think of Troy Polamalu, the hair. Head and shoulders, baby.
How did I not even think of this? As like, that will be the coolest bust ever. That might be... I might have to sort of like run off a list of that. But in the interest of time, because unfortunately I don't have a whole lot more, because I'm married, and that's what married people have to do. They have to do things the wife tells them to. Number 2.
There's two other guys.
Yeah.
And obviously, and both of these two guys, one guy will make it to the semifinals, but the other guy won't. They're on here for the same reasons why Nick Collins is number 5. They play for the Packers.
Yep.
Leroy Butler, who... I think he's going to get semifinals this year, but it's going to take a few years. It's going to take Polamalu, Atwater, and Lynch to make it to the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
In order for Butler to be as a finalist.
Yep.
I think he's definitely deserving. Absolutely. Great Lambeau Leap, we all know. But then we look at number 1, who, if you were to compare Driver to Butler, looking at it right now from the website, Driver currently has 600 more. Driver currently has 6,000 more votes than Butler.
Whoa! I didn't even realize this. When I looked at that thing, I forgot that Driver's number 1.
Number 1. He is one by far. Like, he has 6,000 more than the next guy, and everyone else, Butler, Polamalu, Magic, and Collins, they're only separated by around 2,000 votes. Whereas Driver just way above everyone else with 6,000 votes. Donald Driver.
Is he, like, do you follow him on social media? Is he pushing for this? I know Butler is, to a small degree.
He's mentioned it. He's mentioned a few times that he is number one by far. He said, thanks, guys. Keep pushing. And he has mentioned, like, people, and everyone in the comments saying Driver for the Hall of Fame, because the thing that really pushes Driver is the fact that he has more yards than Don Hutson. And that is the only thing that Driver has going for him. And the only reason why he has more yards than Don Hutson is because Hutson played the 1940s, and the 30s and the 40s, whereas Driver played the 2000s. That is the only reason why Driver has more yards than Don Hutson.
I want to throttle people regardless of sport. Anyone who doesn't who looks at stats and doesn't use them in context of eras. And I think that's sort of like why when I did my algorithms and what I'm doing now, I'm doing that based on how they stack up to the last group of modern Hall of Famers.
Like, I mean, look at Donald Driver. Look at all the wide receivers.
Unbelievable.
All the wide receivers. Isaac Bruce. You're going to tell me Donald Driver's better than Isaac Bruce?
No.
Torrey Holt. Chad Johnson. Reggie Wayne. Hines Ward. Is anyone going to tell me, and Garrett Clark, Henry Ellard, is anyone going to tell me that maybe even Rod Smith as well you can throw in there, or even Jimmy Smith, is anyone going to tell me that Donald Driver is better than all those guys?
Wow.
There is no way that anyone can objectively say with a straight face, unless you're a Packers fan, and tell me that Donald Driver is better than Bruce, Johnson, Holt, Ward, Wayne, Clark, Ellard, maybe even Smith. There's no way that anyone can tell me that Driver is better than any of those guys. That's not me hating on the Packers. I'm just being honest here. Like, and why, again, I'm not even just mad at the fact that he's number one. It's the fact that he's number one and he's leading the charge miles.
It's a strange one, and even from, I don't know. Is the Green Bay Packers themselves sort of promoting this? I know that some teams are.
Yeah, they have been. They have been
promoting
it a bit.
There we go.
They have been promoting. That's why.
Well, and you know what? Like, good on them, and like I'm sure they can sort of like. It's nice for them to see how they sort of stack up. It's like getting free marketing data.
Yeah, that's essentially what it is. I mean, Driver, Butler, and Collins are on here because of that. Palma was in because everyone's using me first out, and Matthews is up there because the fan push is literally that loud and crazy for him. But again, like out of all these guys, not even Butler is above Driver.
That one is and Butler. I don't think Butler will say it publicly, but I'm sure he's like, "Come on, man! I invented the leap."
Yeah, I think Butler. I mean, Collins knows he's not a Hall of Famer. Butler obviously is head and shoulders above him, and even above Driver. I mean, the only reason why Driver is even this high is because he plays for the Packers. That is the only reason why. There is no other reason why Donald Driver is that high.
Have you voted?
Did I vote?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that my vote doesn't count, but I did vote, and I can tell you right now, Driver's not on there.
No, I was just curious. I mean, I haven't. But with that, Vinny, I've got a wife to attend to, and as you can hear in the background, I also have a dog who's now sort of like wants to be fed. Welcome to my world. Not quite how I wanted to end this, but that's life, isn't it?
Don't worry, man. I think we covered all the bases we had to.
We did. Yeah, so that was sort of like a last...
I will tell you what, right now, in terms of my actual vote for the 25, I'll mention this a bit later, but spoiler alert, you will not see Driver or Collins on there, but Butler, Polamalu, and Matthews are.
Nice.
And in case you're curious about Nick Collins, I don't even have him in my top 50 or 75. Maybe even might not even be in my top 90.
No, I don't know that I would either. All right, well, Vinny, thanks so much, and we'll do this again when they announce the semifinalists.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be crazy. It really is. Again, this is going to be exciting, and like I said, the good thing about it is that it's going to increase demand for more guys in the future, and maybe some more modern guys in the future, but just don't expect any of them to be Nick Collins or Donald Driver anytime soon.
Nice.
Or Jeff Garcia, or Ryan Longwell, or Jake Delhomme.
Jake Delhomme. Oh my God. Oh,
so at least he has. Well, you could say the Driver's more deserving than Delhomme.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is Again, this is. I can just think of the people in camp right now. They're probably just laughing, but I can definitely say that they at least know that there's a push for Matthews.
I wonder if they just sort of like slap one guy there just to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, but yeah. Look, moral of the story: there's a lot of Packers fans. Matthews is a big push, and Palomalo is making a first ballot. That's all I got to say. And I guess Donald Driver 2020. I guess.
Sure.
No, hell no.
Yeah, well,
no way.
I'd say stranger things have happened, but not really in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They're my criticism of them overall is certainly weak compared to many of the others.
Yeah. Listen, Driver has to wait at least for like 20, 30, 40, maybe even 50, way too many wide receivers. I mean, fun fact, when there will be a few semifinalists, none of them are being named Donald Driver. I can tell you right now.
Driver knows that himself.
But I guess maybe there could be a Packers fan push for Driver, but don't expect it to go the same way as the Clay Matthews Jr. push. And again, I should mention one more time, the best receiver for the Packers not in. If you say that Donald Driver is better than Lavi Silwig, you need a lobotomy. And
a lesson. In that order.
And also maybe just to be knocked unconscious. I'm not trying to condone violence, but I'm just trying to say, like, I don't.
Nice. All right, we'll talk soon, Vinny. Thanks so much.
Good luck with the wife and the dog, and I'll continue to be single, at least for now. See ya.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something funny to close on this. I got nothing. All right, take care.
See ya. Adios.